Finally, after a lot of secrecy, I can say that I finally took Dispatch to an event. So, as you may or may not know, I attended Smashbotz Los Angeles 2021 with Dispatch. So this marked my first ever combat robotics event, bringing my first ever fully built combat robotics robot. You could count liftoff or scrambled if you want, but they were never finished to the point where I'd bring them to an event. So Dispatch was the first in that sense. And also, and somewhat obviously now, my first ever fights. So it was quite an experience and definitely one that I've been excited to recap for a bit now. So let's get into it. I want to start with, there were a few bots I saw or that I knew about at the event that I really did not want to face. The main one being the Snip, and I'll probably throw up a picture here. That was the robot I was really hoping I would never have to face at any point in the event. So with that said, and me being nervous for a while about who my first round matchup was going to be, it was finally revealed I'd be fighting a lifter called Hercules. So I ran into the builder in the pits, and after talking to him a bit and looking at the robot, I decided that I would run the forks and just spin the weapon up and see what happens. So here's the fight.
Let's go in 3, 2, 1. Fight, robots, fight! Hercules and Dispatch coming out. Ooh. I can't see the action. Whoa! A massive hit. Oh, I can't quite see. Dispatch is trying to dispatch some damage. Hercules trying to out-wedge, but is upside down, making it difficult. So Dispatch now in a good position to now wedge Hercules a little bit, spinning back up. Dispatch looking to do some damage. Maybe it doesn't really want to flip him. Now pinning him, staying in control, playing it safe. Hercules is having difficulties upside down. We have 2 minutes left in this fight. It's already been a minute. Dispatch showing some good control of both his weapon and his wedging. Doesn't really want Hercules in a better position, so kind of taking the strategy route. Not spinning up too much as to flip him back over, but... Oh, and having a little bit of issues with the weapon it looks like. Oh no! Dispatch has lost the wheel. He's not out. He's still able to move and spin his weapon a little bit. We're almost halfway through this fight. Dispatch trying to wedge Hercules. Hercules trying to come in and be aggressive as well. Dispatch still doing a pretty good job with his little wedgelets to control Hercules and actually gets a pin off with one wheel. Hercules kind of backing into Dispatch, looking for a way to do some pushing. Dispatch weapon does still work. Able to get himself off of any high centering. Dispatch trying to get in there and wedge himself underneath Hercules and push him around and stay in control. While Hercules trying to push with his back. Dispatch still being aggressive despite only having one wheel. Hercules doing the best he can upside down. We have 30 seconds left in this fight. We have 10 seconds left in the fight. In 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It will go to a judge's decision.
Well, that got a little hairy. So that fight went to the judges and they did rule it in favor of Dispatch. At the time, oh boy, I had no idea which way it was going to go. I mean, I lost a wheel and my ability to use their weapon, but I did control the fight for the most part, so looking back at it, it was probably going to go that way. At the time, I really didn't know, so that was a relief. So what happened? Well, call it laziness, and I really underestimated how much vibration would happen in a fight compared to some earlier testing. The only Loctite that could be found in the robot was on the screws that held the clamping drum to the motor, and there are 6 screws that hold the nut strips that attach the uprights to the base plate and the wedge. Those 6 screws all face inward, so if they were to back out, they'd go into the weapon. I made sure to put Loctite on those as well, so they would never do that. But that's about it. I figured the rest of them would stay where they were. That way, if I needed to switch the wedge out or something else, I could. And you can see about halfway through that fight, all those screws just loosened, and the weapon uprights were all loosey-goosey, and that's where the weapon was hitting the ground. Also, the hubs on the set screws in the hubs for the wheels on the, I think it was the right side, the one that fell off, that screw loosened. So I made sure to put Loctite in there afterwards too. And you can kind of see it in the video. The top plate sunken in, that had nothing to do with the fight. That was Dispatch sitting on a table for half an hour, being beaten by the sun, waiting for its fight. Yeah, the plastic kind of melted, so the top plate started caving in and the back plate started bulging out because of the electronics pushing against it. So I had to swap those out after the fight, and thankfully as the event went on, the sun started setting and that became less of an issue, but that wasn't very fun to notice afterwards. One last thing was, you can see in the first 10 or 15 seconds, there's a little object that goes flying. That was the bearing that supported the shaft and the other upright for the weapon. So that was just hot glued in place. Afterwards, I asked one of my pit neighbors who had some epoxy to just throw that on. It did gum it up a little bit, but not too badly. So it didn't come out for the rest of the event, so that was nice. So now that that was done, when I got back to the pits, I made sure to put Loctite in any screw that had anything to do with the weapon uprights. Every single one had Loctite. Also, the set screws on the hubs for the wheels got Loctite. I only had about 10 or 15 minutes in between fights, and next up was a Viper lifter called Burger Boy. So Burger Boy is a Viper kit with the lifter set up, and because I actually own one, I know roughly how low to the ground it is, and I knew that my forks would be right under it. However, like I said, I had a bit of a time crunch, so while I got everything done in time, I didn't really know how long it would take for the Loctite to set. So for the first minute or minute and a half, I really don't run the weapon at all for the fear of vibrating everything loose again. About halfway through though, you're gonna see that I realize everything is good, and then I start turning on the weapon for good. And then also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but for whatever reason, Dispatch was having trouble with the floor in that arena. And some bots you'll see later on, like Burger Boy, also had trouble. I really don't know what it was. I haven't gone to enough events to really say. That's the only floor I've driven on, so maybe it was the bot itself. But you see that there is some opportunities I have that I just can't capitalize on because I'm having a little trouble driving. So with that said, the forks are on, Dispatch got put in the box. Let's see how fight number 2 went.
3, 2, 1, fight robot, fight!
That was much better. The wheel stayed on, the weapon worked, nothing fell off. I did a little damage, got a new fight, I got a few nice hits in. That was fun. That really was. That felt really good. So dispatch won by judge's decision. Probably should say that. And I was just proud of the way I controlled the fight. I stayed on him the whole time, and you could see towards the end that lip on the edge of the lifter was just getting bent up pretty bad. That was cool. So that was a fun win. After that, I knew I'd be facing a Viper horizontal spinner, Ivy, who has the new version of the horizontal spinner kit, which has the bar slightly angled to hit a little lower, and it also has the better mount for the weapon motor. I knew going into this that Ivy was still going to hit relatively high on my robot. Its blade, I believe, actually reached just about the top edge of my wedge, so that kind of concerned me, but at the same time, that means that I can hit them weapon on weapon, and I'll probably just pop it right up. So took the forks off for this one. I didn't really think I need them, and the idea here was just drive at them. And I know that their previous two fights, even though they were in the winner's bracket and were 2-0, their weapon fell out in both of them. So the idea was just make it fall out a third time, and then just hit them, hit them, hit them. So with that said, here's the fight.
In 3, 2, 1, fight robots, fight! Dispatch comes out quickly, looking for position, gets behind Ivy. Dispatch getting a little high centered on the edge of the arena, but oh no, Ivy's weapon is out! Ivy's whole weapon is now dragging, and Dispatch is going for the wires. Dispatch coming around the side. Ivy's trying to push back, still has a drive. Has won plenty of fights without its weapon. Dispatch, right side drive might be having a little bit of issues. Dispatch is still functional except for that right wheel, and Ivy has lost its weapon. This might come down to a tough judge's decision. Minute 50 on the clock. Oh no, Ivy's upside down. It can't drive that way. That's a tap out. Your winner is Dispatch.
There you go. Dispatch got its first knockout. So, like I said, I had a feeling I could pop that weapon right out, and there it was. That right side gearbox jammed up. I think it was on the right side, I'll be honest, I don't remember right now. But the gearbox jammed, that was frustrating, but I was still able to crab walk around, eventually popped them right on their weapon, they tapped out, that's the fight. Went back to the pits, I just swapped out that gearbox, that was really all I had to do. You can see on the top plate that there was a little nick taken out on the corner by the power switch. I just left it as is. I didn't really see a need to replace it. And I can't actually show that top plate right now for reasons you'll see later. That's fight 3. So that was really cool. I'm 3-0. I went into the event hoping to win 2 fights, and I've already got 3 before I have a loss. So things are going good. At this point though, I have a lot of time before my next fight, but I know who my possible opponents are. I could face either Drive Test Frame by Repeat Robotics or the Snip. Yeah, that was a very uncomfortable half an hour between my fight and watching theirs, or whatever time it was. I honestly forgot, but I know there was some time where I was stressing about who I'd face. I made sure to watch that fight, and Drive Test Frame actually did a really good job. I don't think the Snip got one hit on him, maybe a little scrape, but that's it. Really good fight. So I was facing Drive Test Frame. I felt good about that because that means I'd have a robot afterwards, but not so good because now Drive Test Frame gets to face a worse version of the Snip. So I wasn't going to get destroyed, but I probably wasn't going to win either. So I just said, all right, let's throw on the forks. And then I actually swapped out the tires. The blue ones are 50A hardness and the green ones are 30A. I just wanted to see if I can drive a little better with the grippier tires. It was worth a shot. I mean, Drive Test Frame was going to push me around regardless. Right before the fight, Peter and I put our forks side by side to see what it would look like if we went head on. and his forks were just a little longer than mine, so oh boy, time to get pushed around for a bit. So here's fight number 4.
In 3, 2, 1, fight robots, fight! Dispatch pins the new blade up. Dry test frame has been a pretty brutal wedge so far, though. We'll just see who has the advantage in this fight. Dry test wedge, the big pin. This is a winner's bracket fight. You're allowed to pin for until I get bored. Come on, man. Dispatch is spinning up. Test frame pushing, dispatch against the wall and pinning it again. Holding control and taking his time. It is within the rules for him to pin for up to about 10 seconds or until I get angry. He frees up. Right, test frame now. Pinning again. Dispatch is trying to get underneath but can't quite. Right, test frame has very good little wedgelets. All right, can you free up? There we go. Very good. 2 minutes left in this fight. Oh, dry test frame. Okay. Dispatch wasn't moving, so he waited. Dispatch is having a little bit of difficulty driving right now. Showing great translational movement. He might have to get counted out if he doesn't have some control. That's good enough. And he gets a pin for 2. When you separate, Dry test frame is pretty brutal. Coming in and just pinning and holding and controlling the fight. Go to a different wall. Test frame again. Holding and pinning. The power of a wedge. Gets underneath, lifts up. Oh, some smoke is coming out of drive test frame, right?
He said, what? I'm going to switch angles so you can see what he's talking about. Wow, that was lucky. So, for those that want to know what happened, I talked to Peter afterwards, and he said that his BEC and receiver just kind of blew up. So, it's not how I wanted to win, but I'll take it at this point. So that win put me at 4-0 and 2 wins away from possibly taking first place. So that was kind of exciting. What wasn't exciting is I had to face Lopper next. And the right gearbox jammed again. Annoying. So I had to buy a 22.2 to 1 fingertech gearbox off one of my pit neighbors because right now I only had 1 spare. So I threw that gearbox in. I realized also that I think the forks were inhibiting my driving. And I say that because the rubber bands that hold them down, before they weren't rubbing against the ground, but I don't know if the heat from the event warped my frame throughout like the 6 hours that the sun was out or whatever while the robot was out or what, but I think the rubber bands were catching on the floor and that's why I was having so much trouble with the forks. So of course, the one time I really need to use the forks, I probably can't. So I took the forks off and I just said, all right, let's just see if I can outdrive Lopper, who was also 4-0 and just taking names all day. So with that said, put the robot back together, took off the forks, and tried driving my best. So let's see how that went. yikes. But honestly, looking back on it, that was my favorite fight. And I say that because if you look at Dispatch, and I can actually bring it out now, this thing had holes in the base plate, this kind of back plate, by the way, nice one, Lopper, sliced it right in half. And the top plate also got sliced, and I actually gave that to him afterwards. That's why I couldn't show you the nick from Ivy. This thing did not really say it's going to last 3 minutes or take a bunch of a beating or anything. So the fact that it was able to go, I believe it was like a minute and a half against Lopper, getting the crap beat out of it, that was really cool. That spoke to the fact that, hey, maybe I can build a durable robot. So I'm actually really proud of that now that it's been a day and a half and I'm okay with losing that fight. Really, in retrospect, not much happened. This gearbox, the left gearbox, is just the gears lost their teeth or something shattered on the inside because this wheel is not free spinning. So that must have happened when Lopper got the hit here that took a chunk out of the tire. The right side's jammed, kind of. I'm starting to wonder if part of my drive difficulties was just bad design. Part of the warping I mentioned is I think the sides, the frame rail started bending inwards. And I already had a bad design because the base plate was actually wider than the frames, than the side rail. So you can see how it sticks out a bit here. And I've noticed that this tire is actually rubbing against the base plate. So I wonder if that also jammed up that drive. So that's really frustrating if that's why I kept losing drive and gearboxes in my fights. And if I'm being honest, I kind of think that's what happened. So I know what to fix for the next version. But the real reason why I died is because, well, all my problems stemmed because I ran out of weight. But yeah, I really overlooked this. To keep electronics from going into my weapon, I did have a plastic divide and I ran out of weight, like I said. So I actually replaced that with electrical tape. One of the times when I was upside down, Lopper came in and they sliced that tape, and you can see it right here, how it's just sliced. Well, with that tape sliced, the first wire that could get in there happened to be the balance lead of my battery. That got in there, that got sliced. I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that I couldn't drive, because it seemed like I was just stuck because I only had one side that could drive, and like I said, the wheel just wouldn't turn because it's stuck on the base plate. So I can't really say that that's the reason why my bot quit, but it is the reason why I didn't fight again. Because that battery, when I took it out, was really, really hot. So I got it out, I got out of the robot, I threw it in my lipo bag, and as it did that, I saw two of the wires touch and a small spark, and I'm thinking, oh crap. It was in the lipo bag at least, but I kind of want to dispose of this. So I immediately get up with the lipo bag, and I'm walking towards the 12-pound arena, because I'm assuming there's something there. That's where a big explosion could happen. And I run into Zach Lytle, who's kind of where my pit area is. So I just kind of go, excuse me, I got a lipo in here that might go up. What do I do with it? And he directs me towards the 12-pound arena, saying that there's a fire bucket over there. So I handed it over to the event organizers. They handled it. They got me the bag back within like 10 minutes. Super cool. They handled it well. So yeah, that means I didn't have a battery. Now I had a spare, but for whatever reason, the balance lead connectors on it, it doesn't work. So I can charge it, but I can't balance it. So I really don't want to use it. And I said, okay, well, let's look. Is it worth a massive repair for the losers bracket? And I had 4 possible opponents. All of them were wedges of sharp forks. And I had already mentioned that it was pretty much impossible to drive with mine. So I could have fixed the robot, but then it would just get pushed around for 3 minutes. And I really didn't want to do that. Not to mention I had to drive back that night, a 3-hour drive back home. So, and this was about 7 o'clock after that fight. So I just kind of said, it's just not worth it. I'm exhausted. I'm just going to call it quits. So I found the guy handling the Twitch stream, and I just told him that Dispatch is going to forfeit its fight. He'll take third place proudly. So there it is. This thing, which first ever robot, first ever event, a SoCal event too, took third place. And I'm actually quite proud of that. I don't know when I'm going to compete next. I don't even know if I'll be competing with dispatch again. At the next event, I should add. Dispatch is definitely not done. It's sticking around. I have a lot of ideas for it. Honestly, there's not much to fix. There's a little thing here and there, but this thing, it could really dominate. So it's staying around. It's sticking around. But I've been working on something new, and I can't wait to be teasing that over the next few months. So I'll be back again eventually. And now that the event's over, and I've claimed third place, I can do this. Where did it go? Here it is. I can add this to... This is what you wanted to do. You wanted to watch a roboticist struggle to get a sticker. There we go. I can add this to the collection. Smashbotz Los Angeles. So there you go. That was Dispatch and myself attending Smashbotz Los Angeles 2021. I want to thank Jerry Seraphin and the rest of the Kronos crew and everyone else that helped run the event. There was a lot of people there, and they handled it really well. They got all the weight classes running smoothly. They got all the fights done, and it was an absolute ton of fun. I also want to thank a bunch of the builders that showed up and all my pit neighbors for just helping. I mean, they helped out a lot, and just everyone there was great. It was awesome. So I can't wait. I'm really hoping, and I plan on doing it again next time they come around. So that's that. That's Dispatch. And this was my event recap.